Welcome everybody. In today's video we are going to talk about how to take the sketch that you just finished on your thin newsprint sketch paper, the really flimsy one, and transfer it onto your project paper without having to erase or worry about mistakes and smudges and things like that. So the first thing you need to do is double check all of the lines that you've made on this paper. So make sure that it looks similar to your picture, the proportions look accurate, there's nothing that stands out to you as wrong. Then go through and look for areas where maybe you have extra lines, things you meant to erase, and just go ahead and erase those lines. When you're erasing on any paper, but especially this thin paper, you want to be careful as you get towards edges. You can see that I've wrinkled this edge here. So normally when we erase, we go back and forth, but if you are close to an edge, you don't want to do that because you'll catch it and tear it. So if you're erasing near an edge, go towards the edge only. Okay, I believe I've gotten rid of all the lines that I no longer need, and I'm down to just the lines that I plan to trace onto my final paper. So I just erased any lines that I changed, never erased areas that were scribbly. Got it all cleaned up so I know exactly what I'm going to trace. Now we are going to flip this paper over. It helps to have a white paper beneath so that you can actually see these lines. So I recommend just flipping your photo upside down. Got a white paper there. Lay this on top, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but you can see the lines that I've drawn through this. So now I'm going to take a pencil and I am going to shade over everywhere where I see lines. You need to shade really, really thoroughly because once we do that, that graphite, the pencil that you've put on the back of this, is what's going to be pressed onto this paper. So if there's not enough, it won't transfer. Okay, normally I would have you use a pencil like this, just a regular traditional pencil, not mechanical, because you can turn it on its side and you can shade more effectively like this with the side of the lead. However, this is a really light drawing pencil, and so it won't show up when I transfer it. The only other pencil option I have at home, unfortunately, is mechanical. So I am just going to use the mechanical pencil. I will shade over all of these lines, and then I'll be back to walk you through the next step. Okay, so here I have shaded over every single line that I drew on the other side. Notice that I didn't shade with a bunch of gaps in between my lines. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. So you don't want gaps in between your lines because this will not work if you have gaps. So if you notice that, go back over it a little bit more heavily, maybe go a couple different directions and make sure that it's really bold. Shading too much is better than shading too little. So here I couldn't really tell where all the lines were, so I just shaded in a wider area than I needed. It won't hurt anything to shade extra. Now I am going to take this paper and flip it over onto my project paper. While I'm at it, don't forget to put your name and period on the back of this paper. Okay. I am lining it up. The papers should be the same size. I cut them to 8.5 by 11, so they should line up perfectly. Once I've got the edges and the corners lined up, I am going to hold this paper in place. I don't want it to move while I'm tracing. And then I'm going to trace over all of the lines that I already drew. That will push the pencil on the back of this paper onto my project paper, and it will leave just a very light outline of my design. So it won't be as dark as if you drew it by hand, but that's good because we really don't want the pencil to show up in the project. So I'm gonna go ahead and outline. Okay, I believe I've gotten all the lines here. You'll notice I switched back to this pencil. The mechanical pencil has a little bit sharper lead and it was tearing through the paper. So this one does the trick a little bit better. So if you have a regular pencil, use that. Okay, now you can see that I have a very faint outline of everything on my paper. I just want to double check, make sure that I didn't miss anything, make sure it all looks good. If it's a little bit too dark, or if you can see very much pencil, then you can just go to the darker areas, lighten them up a little bit with your eraser. Part of the reason that you don't want too much pencil lead on here is that the charcoal does not mix well with the lead. So anywhere that you have a solid pencil line, the charcoal will just not stick to it. So you do want to make sure that it's light enough that you can just use it as a reference and kind of hide it with the charcoal as you go. Okay, so that is how to transfer your image. After this step, you can start shading with the black and white charcoal pencils. Make sure that you start with light layers, and I would do some light layers over everything with either the black or white, depending on whether the area is a highlight or a shadow, and then build it up really slowly. Okay, I think that's all for today. Thanks, guys.